Each Thursday night at this time, we'll bring you Major Bowles and his original amateur hour. Major?
Around, around she goes, and where she stops, nobody knows.
Concentrated Super Suds in the blue box presents Mert and Marge. Once again, we present Our Gal Sunday, the story of an orphan girl named Sunday who was left on the steps of the cabin of two old miners who raised her from childhood in the little mining town of Silver Creek, Colorado, who, in young womanhood, married him. Once again, we bring you the romance of Helen Trent, who sets out to prove for herself what so many women long to prove, that because a woman is 35 or more, romance in life need not be over.
The Columbia Network takes pride in presenting Orson Welles in the first production of a unique new summer series by the Mercury Theater on the Air.
Good evening. We will present during the next 9 weeks many different kinds of stories.
In fact, CBS picked up one of KMOX's hillbilly music shows in the 30s. The old-fashioned barn dance would now have a nationwide following. Pat Pidgeot's siblings were regulars on the show.
The two, sisters and brother, were entertainers on the old-fashioned barn dance program that was shown on Saturday nights. And, of course, it was even live, which things are not always live today.
Even Pat made an appearance on the show. She was only 4 years old.
So one time they heard me singing along, and they got this bright idea about putting me on the show as a guest. But of course, at that time, your microphones weren't quite as portable as they are now. So they got some boxes on for me to stand on and lifted me up on these boxes, and I sang. It was just like being at home with Mom at the ironing board.
When I was a little boy, back in the late 30s, when Bob Hyland probably was still a child, KMOX already was a great radio station, known throughout the country as a great radio station.
And KMOX continued to build its reputation for in-depth sports reporting, which included commentaries by France Laux.
Well, France, who is your choice today, and on what have you based your prediction?
I think it'll be a tough game. I believe Illinois will give them a contest, but naturally you've got to pick Notre Dame.
America now relied on radio for its entertainment and news. That reliance grew as events in Europe heated up. The CBS network became the primary source for news thanks to the work of H.V. Kaltenborn, Robert Trout, the Murrow Boys, and local newsmen Francis P. Douglas and Guy Runyon.
Bob Trout is standing by in the British capital. Go ahead, London.
London heard its first news of the attacks on Hawaii and the Philippines from John Charles Daly in New York just a few moments ago. It is, of course, too early to give you any reaction, but as you know, the British government made plain what would happen if America became involved in war with Japan some days ago.
The Public Affairs Department of KMOX presents the 17th in a series of programs from Army camps in the greater Mississippi Valley. We're speaking to you right now from the induction station at Jefferson Barracks, where the first step is taken by those boys who soon will be soldiers in the Army of the United States of America.
And here is the latest news on the war with Japan. All the main American and British strongholds in the Pacific are under assault by the Japanese Army, Navy, or Air Force.
Good evening, everyone. The largest airplane manufacturer in the United States tonight told the nation in a broadcast that American planes are second to none and in some categories vastly superior to anything in the world.
KMOX ran a full-scale news summary every night at 10 o'clock. Guy Runyon filled a 15-minute time block with the news of the day.
Good evening, everyone. Wendell Willkie is in Washington tonight, and he's informed President Roosevelt he favors the outright convoy by the United States Navy of ships carrying arms and food to Britain.
Security at KMOX was very tight in those days. There were government fears that the enemy might try to take over civilian communications.
The studios were at the Mart building at 12th and Spruce, and there were guards there, and you had to have a badge. They gave you a number and a badge in order for you to stay in that building in case there was an air raid.
The war raged on in Europe and the Pacific. Edward R. Murrow and his team of reporters captivated the nation with reports from the scene.
American heavy bombers have been out in great strength today. More than 1,300 of them. attacking strategic targets in Germany. This is the greatest daylight force ever to be sent against German targets.
During the war years, the St. Louis Cardinals dominated baseball, going to the World Series 4 out of 5 years. In the 1944 Streetcar Series, KMOX listeners followed the Cards and the Browns.
Here's the pitch. O'Day hits the line drive, headed out to right field. It's a hit. Moore has it. A throw home. Sanders is racing in. He's in. The Cardinals win 3-2.
World War II finally ended, and the boys came home. The networks now directed their attention to the development of a new broadcast medium, television. But the St. Louis CBS facility was still as busy as ever.
They had a huge studio, which is really an auditorium, called the Playhouse, seated about 200, 250 people. And they did a lot of shows, some quiz programs, some dramas, musical shows.
Every week, KMOX fed CBS a program called Saturday at the Chase.
The chase is on. Through the facilities of KMOX, the voice of St. Louis, Columbia's great station in the heart of the rich Mississippi Valley, this is Saturday at the Chase with our own Harry Fender.
Thank you, Wally. Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. If I'm a little shaky today, it's because I watched Spike Jones' great opening performance in the Chase Club last night, and what a show.
Koppler had a contract agreement with each of the entertainers who performed at the Chase Club to do one radio show. And, of course, it was on KMOX. So, as a writer, I would go out and interview and talk with whoever the entertainer was and concoct a show and write a script for them to put on the air.
KMOX had a program called The Land We Live In, which was just an outstanding drama based on local St. Louis history that was done before a big studio audience with a big dramatic cast and a full orchestra, which KMOX also had in those days.
Ken Jones wrote most of the scripts.
The Land We Live In was primarily a public relations vehicle for the Union Electric Company, intended to give them the chance to talk to the big community about itself and to let people know what a great place St. Louis was and what great history it had and all the wonderful stories that existed in what was Union Electric's service area.
By now, network radio was losing its sheen and offered fewer programs to affiliates. But one show gained in popularity during the 50s.
Around Dodge City and in the territory on west, there's just one way to handle the killers and the spoilers, and that's with a U.S. Marshal and the smell of gun smoke.
KMOX had earned a reputation as a news leader, and a journalist named Rex Davis took that reputation to the next level.
The normally sterile atmosphere of the City Hall Rotunda was suddenly transformed into a blaze of color and light and sound.
Rex Davis's 12 noon newscast was the highest rated local newscast in the country during the early 50s when I worked here. The second highest rated local newscast in the country of any radio station was Rex Davis's 8 a.m. newscast.
Disc jockeys and announcers filled the rest of the station's day. One of them, Jim Butler, was known as the night mayor of St. Louis.
And came here to KMOX in '51, and it was on April 1st, and that should have told me something. As it turned out, I had 5 really good years as the all-night record man on KMOX, and then moved into the daytime and served as the clock watcher here. We used to have a record show in the morning from 6 until 9 each morning called the Clock Watcher. And some of the highlights of my memories have to do with working with Buddy Blattner with broadcasts of the St. Louis Hawks.
Hatton shoots and scores. Oh, are they pounding those boards now?
Harry Fender hosted a show from the Chase that regularly drew celebrities who were visiting St. Louis. Recorded music was a regular staple. KMOX drew young listeners with Teen O'Clock Time.
Hello again, everybody. This is Joe Garagiola from L. Lang Field here in St. Petersburg, Florida, the spring training site of the St. Louis Cardinals.
and Harry Carey was heard throughout the Midwest.